I found out my twin brother got my wife of 6 years pregnant at our anniversary party. So I exposed them and watched karma wreck their lives. Sup Reddit never thought I'd be airing my family drama online, but here we are. I need to get this off my chest. Grab something to eat, because this gets wild. Let me paint you a picture of my childhood, because you need to understand where this train wreck started. I, 32 male, have an identical twin brother named Miles. Same DNA, same face, same everything, until we hit about 16, and he decided to become a completely different kind of person than me. When we were kids, Miles and I were tight. I'm talking the kind of close where we'd switch classes for fun, steal each other's homework, play the same video games until our eyes bled. We had this secret language that only made sense to us, full of inside jokes and references from years of being stuck together. Third grade, we convinced our teacher that I was Miles for an entire month. She gave him my grade on a science project. We thought it was hilarious. But here's the thing nobody tells you about having a twin. Sometimes one of you evolves into a functioning human being, and the other one just marinates in their own toxicity until they're a perfect replica of your worst nightmare. Our parents were a matched set of disasters. Dad worked as a regional sales manager for some medical supply company, which meant he spent 40 hours a week kissing up and the other 128 hours making everyone around him miserable. Mom was a legal secretary who pulled decent money but never saw a cent of it, because Dad controlled every dollar like a dictator hoarding resources. The house we grew up in was this cookie-cutter 3-bedroom in the suburbs outside Phoenix. Nice enough from the outside, mowed lawn, decent paint job, the whole middle-class facade. Inside was a different story. You could smell the dysfunction the second you walked through the door. Stale cigarette smoke, cheap liquor, and the lingering scent of whatever argument had gone down that morning. Dad had this pattern. He'd roll in around 7 every night, already 3 drinks deep from whatever establishment he stopped at after work. Didn't matter that Mom had dinner waiting. She'd slave over that stove for an hour after getting home from her own job, and he'd take one bite and start in on her. "This tastes like cardboard," he'd say, pushing his plate away. "My mother could cook. What's your excuse?" Mom would just sit there and take it. Every insult, every degrading comment, every time he'd compare her to his sainted mother, who'd been dead for 15 years. She'd nod along like she agreed with him, like she really was the worthless wife he claimed she was. The money thing was worse. Dad had convinced her years ago to put all her paychecks into his account. Said it was more efficient that way. Easier for him to manage the household finances. Really, it just meant she had to beg him for money to buy groceries, for gas, for anything. He'd grill her about every purchase like she was embezzling from him. $40 for shampoo and conditioner? He'd yell, waving a receipt in her face. What are you trying to do, bankrupt us? Meanwhile, he'd drop $200 at those establishments every week without blinking. Miles and I learned early to make ourselves scarce when Dad came home. We'd hole up in our room with the TV cranked up, drowning out the shouting. I'd put on headphones and lose myself in music or video games, anything to not hear what was happening in the kitchen. Miles would just lie on his bed staring at the ceiling, looking blank in this way that made me uncomfortable even then. The really bad nights were when Dad came home completely wasted. He'd pass out in the living room, and we'd find him the next morning still in his clothes from the night before, reeking of alcohol and body odor. Mom would clean up the mess without a word, wash his clothes, sanitize the couch, act like nothing had happened. Dad would wake up around noon with no memory of the night before, immediately start looking for someone to blame for his headache. What really messed with my head was how Mom never fought back, never stood up for herself. She'd just take it all with this martyred expression, like she deserved every insult he threw at her. Looking back now, I realized she was in survival mode, but as a kid, I couldn't understand why she wouldn't just leave, why she'd let him treat her like property. Miles watched all of it growing up. Same household, same old man, same front row seat to dysfunction. But somehow, he took notes on the wrong parts. High school was when I started noticing Miles wasn't just experimenting. He was committed to the lifestyle. Started with drinking at parties. Normal stuff. Then it was drinks before parties. Then drinks instead of parties. By junior year, he was showing up to school with vodka in a water bottle like he'd invented the concept. The guys started keeping their distance. Nobody wants to babysit someone who's impaired at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Miles chose the bottle. I chose the exit. Fast forward to senior year. I'm 18. Miles and I barely speak anymore, and our parents' marriage is held together by Mom's desperate need to maintain the illusion of normalcy. Mom's aunt died in November of our senior year. She had to drive to Tucson for the funeral, which meant leaving Miles and me home alone with Dad for the weekend. We both had final exams coming up, Couldn't miss school. I got home from my calculus exam around 3 in the afternoon. Dad's car was in the driveway, which was weird since he usually didn't roll in until after 6. The house was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet. No TV blaring, no sounds of Dad rummaging through the fridge. Then I heard it. Rhythmic thumping from upstairs. Headboard hitting wall. A woman's voice that definitely wasn't Mom's, making sounds that made my stomach turn. I took the stairs 2 at a time. The master bedroom door was half open. I pushed it all the way, and there was my dad, half-dressed, with some woman from his office. Both of them intoxicated, rolling around in my parents' bed, the bed my mom slept in every night. They didn't even notice me, too out of it to care about anything except each other. The woman, blonde, maybe 30, with Dad's company name tattooed on her ankle like she was branded property, was laughing between moans. Dad was muttering something about how much better she was than Mom, how Mom had let herself go, how this woman actually knew how to satisfy him. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, watching this disaster in real time. Then I backed out slowly, closed the door, and went downstairs to wait for Miles. He showed up an hour later. I met him in the driveway before he could even get out of his truck. "We need to talk," I said. "Now." I told him everything, described what I'd walked in on, how Dad had brought this woman into our house, into Mom's bed, and was actively cheating on her in the most disrespectful way possible. Miles's reaction wasn't shock, wasn't anger. It was guilt, uncomfortable, squirming guilt. "You already knew," I said flatly. He sighed. "I caught them a few months ago, at his office after hours." My blood went cold. "And you just went along with it? What was I supposed to do? Blow up the family? Cause drama?" "The family's already blown up," I shouted. "He's cheating on Mom in her own bed, and you've been helping him hide it. It's complicated." "No, it's not." I shoved him. "He's betraying Mom, and you're enabling it, just like you enable all his other nonsense." Miles got in my face. "You always need to play hero, don't you? Always trying to prove you're better than everyone else. Sometimes marriages are complicated. Dad has needs that Mom isn't fulfilling. That's not our business. She's our mother, and he's our father. If you tell her and they get divorced, I'm blaming you forever. Every piece of fallout from this is on your head." "Then blame me," I said, "because I'm telling her the second she gets home." We didn't speak for the rest of the day. Miles locked himself in his room while I waited downstairs, watching the clock. Dad and his mistress eventually stumbled out around 6, both looking guilty as hell when they saw me sitting on the couch. He tried to threaten me into silence, told me I'd regret it if I opened my mouth. I just stared at him until he left. Mom got home at 9, exhausted from the funeral and the 4-hour drive. She looked so worn down, so tired. I almost didn't have the heart to tell her, but I did. "Mom, sit down," I said. "There's something you need to know." She looked confused, glancing between me and Miles, who'd emerged from his cave. "What's going on?" I told her everything. The affair, the woman. The fact that it had been happening for months in our house, in her bed. Miles tried to interrupt, tried to claim I was exaggerating, but I kept talking over him. Dad walked in right in the middle of my explanation. Tried to deny it at first. Said I was lying to cause trouble. But Mom's face told me she already knew. Maybe not the specifics, but deep down, she'd suspected. "Is this true?" she asked him, her voice weirdly calm. He got defensive instead of apologetic. "So what if it is? You think I'm supposed to stay faithful to someone who can't even keep me interested? Look at yourself, Linda. You've gained 40 pounds. You dress like a grandmother. You're boring in bed. What did you expect?" That's when Mom slapped him, hard enough that the sound echoed through the house. Dad stumbled back more from shock than force, his hand going to his reddening cheek. "I'm done," Mom said quietly. "Boys, pack your things. We're leaving." I was already moving toward my room when I noticed Miles wasn't following. "Miles, let's go," I said. He looked at Dad, then at Mom, then back at Dad. And then he sealed our fate forever. "I'm staying with Dad." Mom's face went pale. "Miles, honey, please." "No," he said firmly. "I'm not leaving because you can't handle reality. Dad needs someone here, and it's not going to be me abandoning him over some family drama." "He cheated on me," Mom said, her voice breaking. "In our bed." "Yeah, well, maybe if you took better care of yourself, he wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere," Miles said with zero emotion. "Can't really blame him." I didn't think, just lunged at him. We crashed through the coffee table, fists flying. I got in 3 solid punches before Mom screamed at us to stop. We separated, both bleeding from split lips, both breathing hard. "Get your stuff and get out!" Miles spat blood onto the carpet. "Both of you!" So we did. Mom and I packed whatever we could carry in duffel bags and trash bags, loaded up her car, and left. Dad stood in the doorway yelling about how we were abandoning the family, how we'd regret this, how Mom would come crawling back when she realized she couldn't make it on her own. Miles stood next to him, and for just a second, I saw doubt flicker across his face. But he stayed, and that was that. We lived in a cheap motel for 3 weeks while Mom figured out our next move. Turned out her aunt, the one who just died, had left her $18,000 in her will. Not a fortune, but enough to start over. She opened her own bank account for the first time in her adult life, found us a decent 2-bedroom apartment on the other side of town, and filed for divorce. The divorce took 10 months and got nasty. Dad fought to keep every penny, but the courts didn't care. Adultery with a mistress he'd brought into the marital home, combined with financial abuse and my testimony, meant Mom walked away with half of everything. The house sale, his retirement account, savings, all of it split down the middle. Dad was livid, called her greedy, vindictive, a gold digger. Said she was trying to destroy him financially. Miles called me exactly once during the proceedings. Told me I'd ruined our family, that Dad was drinking more than ever, depressed, falling apart, that everything was my fault because I couldn't keep my mouth shut. Good, I said, and hung up. We didn't talk again for 7 years. College was my clean slate. I got into Arizona State on a decent scholarship, moved into the dorms, threw myself into starting fresh. Mom was thriving too, got promoted to office manager at the law firm where she worked, moved into a nicer place, started actually enjoying her life for the first time in decades. That's where I met Clara. She was in my Biology 101 class, always sat in the third row with her hair in this messy bun that somehow looked perfect. I'm not usually smooth. Growing up watching my dad abuse my mom didn't exactly give me a blueprint for healthy relationships, but something about Clara made me want to try. I asked her out for coffee after an exam. She said yes. We ended up talking for 6 hours, barely touching our textbooks. She told me about growing up in Seattle, her dream of becoming a school counselor, her obsession with hiking and outdoor stuff. I told her about most things. Left out the heavy family trauma until date number 4. When I finally did open up about my dad, Miles, everything, Clara didn't run. She listened, asked smart questions, told me I did the right thing protecting my mom. We dated for 3 years, moved in together after graduation, got married a year later at City Hall with just Mom and a few close friends. No big wedding. Neither of us wanted the stress. Just signed papers, had dinner at a nice steakhouse, called it a day. I landed a job as a database administrator for a tech company in Scottsdale. Clara got hired at an elementary school doing counseling work. We bought a small 3-bedroom house in Tempe, adopted a German Shepherd named Diesel, did the whole suburban dream thing. Miles wasn't in any of it. I'd see updates occasionally through family. He was working construction, living with Dad still, dating random women who never lasted more than a few months. Mom tried to keep a relationship with him, invited him to holidays, but he always found excuses not to show. The rare times he did appear, we'd end up in a screaming match within an hour. Then Dad died. Heart attack at 59, found dead on his couch with an empty bottle of liquor on the floor. Doctor said his liver was basically destroyed. Honestly surprising he'd made it that long. Mom wanted to go to the funeral. He was still your father, she said, like that meant something after everything. I went for her. Wore a black suit I hated, stood in the back of the funeral home while distant relatives I barely knew gave speeches about what a great guy Dad was. Amazing how memory improves once someone's dead. Miles spotted me immediately. He was standing near the casket, red-eyed and intoxicated at 2 in the afternoon. The service hadn't even started yet. He pushed through the crowd and got right in my face. "You've got some nerve showing up here," he slurred, jabbing a finger at my chest. "After what you did? You killed him, you know that? All the stress from the divorce, losing his money, that's on you. You're the reason he's dead." People were staring. Clara grabbed my arm, trying to pull me away, but I held my ground. "I didn't kill anyone," I said evenly. "He killed himself, 1 bottle at a time, just like he killed Mom's spirit for 20 years. "Nonsense!" Miles shoved me hard. "If you hadn't run your mouth about the affair, they'd still be married. He'd still be alive. This is your fault." I punched him. Clean shot to the jaw that dropped him onto the funeral home carpet. His nose started bleeding immediately. I stood over him, fist clenched, ready to hit him again if he got up. Nobody moved to help him. Not the relatives, not Dad's friends. Nobody. They all knew what Dad had been, what Miles had chosen to become. Mom dragged me outside before security showed up. Clara followed, looking shaken. The car ride home was tense. Clara kept giving me these looks like I'd disappointed her, like I was the one in the wrong for defending myself. The betrayal. Something changed after the funeral. Clara became distant in this subtle way that I couldn't quite pin down. Our conversations got shallow. Work talk, bill talk, what's for dinner talk. The deep conversations we used to have at 2 in the morning just stopped happening. She started spending way more time on her phone. I'd walk into a room and she'd quickly close whatever she was looking at, give me this bright smile that felt forced. When I asked if everything was okay, she'd say she was fine, just stressed about work. I caught her crying in the bathroom a few times. Quiet sobs she tried to hide with running water. When she'd come out with red eyes, she'd blame it on her period or a tough day with a student. But the timing never added up. Our 6th wedding anniversary was coming up. 6 years married, together for 10 total. I wanted to do something big, something to remind us both why we'd fallen in love. So I planned a party, rented out this nice venue downtown, invited all our friends and family, hired a caterer, open bar, the works. Clara seemed hesitant when I first told her. I don't know if we need something that big, she said, not looking at me. Maybe just dinner? Come on, I said, pulling her close. When's the last time we really celebrated? Let's go all out. She was quiet for a long moment. Then her whole demeanor shifted. She smiled, that real smile I'd been missing, and said, You know what? You're right. Let's make it huge. Invite everyone. The night of the party arrived. The venue looked incredible. String lights everywhere, tables set up perfect, bar in the corner already getting heavy use. Friends from college, co-workers, family I hadn't seen in years. Everyone showed up dressed nice, ready to celebrate. I worked the room, catching up with my cousins from Dad's side, who I'd lost touch with. They asked about work, the house, when Clara and I were planning to have kids. Standard party conversation. That's when I saw him walk through the door. Miles. I froze mid-conversation with my cousin Tyler, nearly dropping my drink. Miles was here. In his usual construction site outfit, torn jeans, flannel shirt, work boots. Clara was across the room, and the second she saw him, her whole face lit up in a way it hadn't for me in months. I watched them. Couldn't help it. The way she touched his arm when she greeted him, fingers lingering just a second too long. The way he leaned in close to whisper something that made her laugh, actually laugh, with her head thrown back. The way they stood together, bodies angled toward each other, like they were the only two people in the room. My stomach dropped. I made my way over, weaving through clusters of guests. They didn't notice me approaching, too absorbed in whatever conversation they were having. Clara had her hand on his chest. His hand was on her lower back. Way too familiar. Way too comfortable. Miles, I said, my voice flat. Didn't know you were coming. Clara jumped back like I'd caught her stealing. Oh, I meant to tell you. I ran into him a few weeks ago at the grocery store and thought it would be nice, family and everything. Right, I said, watching them both. Family. Something was off. The energy between them. The guilt written all over Clara's face. The way Miles wouldn't quite meet my eyes but had this smug little smirk playing at his lips. I need to grab something from the car, Clara said quickly. Miles, can you help me? The gift bags are kind of heavy. I'll help, I said. No, it's fine. You should stay with your guests. I'll help, I repeated, harder this time. The three of us walked out to the parking lot in tense silence. Clara kept chattering nervously about the party, the turnout, how great everything looked. Miles stayed quiet, hands shoved in his pockets. Clara's phone was sitting on the passenger seat of her car when she opened the door. Face up, screen lit with a new text notification. From M. The preview showed enough. Can't wait to tell everyone tonight. Should have done this months ago. My blood went cold. I grabbed the phone before Clara could react. Hey! She lunged for it, but I was already swiping, opening the messages. Months of texts. Hundreds of them. Miss you? Last night was incredible. He's working late. Come over. Photos I will never be able to unsee. Plans to meet up. Complaints about me. How boring I was. How distant. How Miles understood her in ways I never could. And then, from 3 days ago, took the test this morning. Positive. We're having a baby. I looked up from the phone. Clara was crying, shaking her head. Miles had that same guilty look from when we were kids and got caught doing something we knew was wrong. How long? My voice sounded weird. Detached. Please, let me explain. Clara started. How long? Miles spoke instead. Since right after Dad's funeral. About 10 months. 10 months? She'd been sleeping with my brother for 10 months. After the funeral where Miles and I had fought, where I'd punched him, where everything had gone to hell. You're pregnant, I said, still holding the phone. With his kid. Clara nodded, mascara running down her face. I didn't mean for it to happen. After the funeral, I was so shaken up by the violence, and Miles reached out to apologize for everything. We started talking, and then it just kept happening. And I fell in love with him, and you thought you'd announce it at our anniversary party? I held up the phone. Should have done this months ago? We wanted everyone to know, Miles said, and there was that smug tone again. Thought it would be easier if we just ripped the Band-Aid off with everyone here. Figured you'd have to be civil about it in front of family. I laughed. Couldn't help it. The sound came out harsh and wrong. You thought I'd just smile and nod while you announce you've been sleeping with my wife? While she's carrying your baby? At our anniversary party? We thought you'd be mature about it, Clara said quietly. Everyone respects you. If you gave us your blessing, they'd accept it. We could all move forward. The sheer audacity of it. Get inside, I said. Both of you. We're going to that side room where they keep the catering supplies. Now. They followed. Clara was still crying, trying to grab my arm, apologizing. Miles walked with his head down, but I could see him tensing up, getting ready for a fight. The side room was small, mostly just stacked chairs and extra table linens. I closed the door behind us. Here's what's going to happen, I said, voice eerily calm. You're going to stand here and not say a word. Then we're going back out there. And I'm going to tell everyone exactly what you two have been doing. And you're going to stand there and take it. Please don't, Clara begged. Please, we can figure this out privately. You wanted everyone to know, I said. So everyone's going to know. On my terms. Miles stepped forward. You don't have to make this ugly. You made it ugly 10 months ago when you started sleeping with my wife. I could have hit him. Wanted to. My fists were clenched, knuckles white. But I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of seeing me lose control. Not yet. Instead, I opened the door and walked back into the venue. They followed because they didn't know what else to do. The party was in full swing. I walked straight to the DJ booth and grabbed the microphone. The music cut. Everyone turned to look. Hey everyone, thanks for coming tonight, I started, my voice echoing through the speakers. Clara and Miles had just emerged from the hallway. I watched Clara's face go white as she realized what I was about to do. I know we're here to celebrate 6 years of marriage, but I just found out some interesting news I thought you should all know about. The room went quiet. Everyone staring. Turns out my wife Clara has been sleeping with my brother Miles for the past 10 months. They started right after my dad's funeral, apparently, and she's pregnant with his kid. I pointed at them standing frozen by the entrance. They're right there if anyone wants to congratulate them. They were planning to announce it themselves tonight. Thought I'd save them the trouble. Dead silence. Then chaos. Tyler was the first to explode. Are you freaking kidding me? Someone else shouted. That's your brother's wife. The room erupted. Not with congratulations, with pure disgust. People surrounded Miles and Clara, screaming at them. Every name in the book. Homewrecker, backstabber, piece of trash, carbon copy of our dead father. Someone threw their drink. I saw liquid splash across Miles's face. Clara tried to explain. Hands up. Voice breaking. We fell in love. You can't control who you fall in love with. We wanted you all to know because you thought we'd support you cheating on your husband with his twin brother? Someone yelled back. This is sick. You should both be ashamed. Mom and I walked out together. Clara called me 43 times that night, left voicemails alternating between apologizing and demanding I fix the situation she'd created. I deleted them all without listening past the first 5 seconds. The next morning, I called a divorce attorney. By noon, I'd changed all the locks. By evening, I sent her one text. You have 1 week to get your stuff. After that, it's on the curb. She tried to negotiate. Said she was pregnant, needed more time. I told her she should have thought about that before spreading her legs for my brother for 10 months. The divorce was quick. Beautiful thing about prenups and public admission of adultery, there's not much to fight about. Clara got nothing. No house, no money, no alimony, and definitely no child support since she'd made it crystal clear whose kid she was carrying. I showed up to one court hearing, sat across from her while she tried to explain how she'd fallen in love with Miles. I didn't say a word, just signed the papers and left. Sold the house 4 months later. Bought a condo downtown. 20th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, view of the whole city. Diesel came with me, of course. No way I was leaving my dog behind. Started hitting the gym. Picked up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because I needed an outlet. Went on a few dates, nothing serious. The family rumor mill kept me updated. Clara had a girl. They moved into a cramped apartment in Mesa because Miles's construction checks barely covered rent. Clara went back to work 6 weeks postpartum because Miles was spending half his paycheck at those establishments. He was becoming dad. Miles tried borrowing money from every family member who'd still take his calls. Nobody was lending him a cent. He'd burned every bridge. Mom cut him off completely. Me? I focused on moving forward. Got promoted at work. Bought a second property as an investment. Started seeing someone casually. An architect named Melissa, who had her life together. Life was good. Stable. I wasn't waking up with anxiety anymore. Then, about 2 years after the divorce finalized, Miles showed up at my building. He somehow convinced the front desk he was me. Twin thing worked on the new guy. Found him waiting outside my door when I got home from work. He looked like absolute garbage. Unshaven, clothes dirty, eyes bloodshot, and desperate. I need to talk to you, he said. I tried to walk past him. No, please. He grabbed my arm. Just 5 minutes. I'm begging you. Something about hearing him say that word, begging, made me stop. I unlocked my door but didn't invite him in. Stood in the doorway with my arms crossed. Talk. We're messed up, he said, voice cracking. Completely done for. I got fired 2 months ago. We're 4 months behind on rent. Eviction notices posted. The baby's been sick for 3 weeks, coughing constantly, won't eat. Clara took her to urgent care once, but we can't afford the follow-up. They said she might have pneumonia. I just stared at him. I need money, he continued. 5 grand, maybe 10, just to get caught up on rent and take the baby back to the doctor. Clara's family won't help. Mom blocked us. I've asked everyone. You're the last person I can turn to. And you thought I'd help you? You're my brother. Was, I corrected. Past tense. You slept with my wife, got her pregnant, humiliated me, and now you want a loan? I'll pay you back, he said desperately. I swear. Whatever you want. We're out of options. The baby needs help. Then maybe you shouldn't have spent your rent money at those establishments. His face went red. I made mistakes. I know that. But she's innocent. Please. I'm literally begging you. Name your terms. I looked at him. Saw the desperation, the shame, the anger. Saw Dad's ghost standing there, making the same excuses, blaming everyone else. No. What? Figure it out yourself. She could have pneumonia. Not my problem. You wanted to play house with my wife? Congratulations. Now deal with the consequences like an adult instead of running to everyone else to fix your mess. You jerk, he shouted. She's your niece. She's a baby and she's sick and you're just going to let her suffer? I'm going to let her suffer because her father's an addict who cares more about drinking than medicine. Get off my doorstep before I call security. Please, he tried one more time. I'm sorry. For everything. I was wrong. I messed up. I know I don't deserve your help, but she does. Just this once. I stepped inside and closed the door in his face. Heard him pounding on it for another minute before his footsteps retreated. I stood there thinking about what he'd said. A baby with possible pneumonia. Parents who couldn't afford medical care. Miles admitting he'd been drinking away their money. The next morning, I called Tyler. Hey man, I said when he picked up. You still live near Miles and Clara's place? Yeah, why? I need you to tell me what you've seen. Be honest. Tyler was quiet for a moment. It's bad, dude. I saw them at the grocery store last week. The baby looked rough, runny nose, coughing hard. Clara looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. Miles was buying alcohol instead of medicine or baby food. I heard from someone in their building that there's fighting all the time. Baby crying at all hours. Pretty sure Miles is intoxicated more often than he's sober. My jaw clenched. How bad is the apartment? I haven't been inside, but I've seen them in the hallway. Place smells like mold and cigarettes. Miles leaves empty bottles by the front door. Neighbors have complained to the landlord multiple times. That sealed it for me. I called CPS the next day. Gave them the address, described what I'd heard. Parents behind on rent, father with a substance abuse problem, baby sick and not receiving medical care. I told them I was a concerned family member who'd been informed the child was living in unsafe conditions. The lady on the phone took down all the information, said they'd send someone to do a welfare check within 72 hours. I hung up feeling complicated. Part of me knew I was doing this to protect a kid. The other part knew I was also doing it to destroy them. Maybe both things were true. 3 weeks later, Miles showed up at my building again. Somehow convinced a different security guy he was me. Pounded on my door at 7 a.m. on a Saturday. I opened it to find him looking even worse. Unshaven, clothes filthy, eyes bloodshot. He reeked of stale alcohol and cigarettes. Still intoxicated or hungover, I couldn't tell which. You called CPS on us, he said. Wasn't even a question. Yeah, I did. His face went red. They took her. They took our daughter. Said the apartment was unsafe. That I was under the influence during their visit. That Clara couldn't prove she'd been taking the baby to a doctor. Good, I said flatly. Maybe now she'll actually get the medical care she needs. You destroyed my family, he was shouting now, spit flying, alcohol breath hitting me in the face. She's gone. They said we have to complete all these programs before we can even get supervised visits. You destroyed your own family when you slept with my wife, I said. I just made sure an innocent kid didn't suffer because you're an addict. He tried to shove past me. That's when 6 months of jujitsu kicked in. I grabbed his arm, turned my hip, put him on the hallway floor. Not gracefully. We both stumbled. I banged my elbow on the doorframe, and he landed hard. He laid there for a second, stunned, then started crying. Not laughing, actually crying. I'm sorry, he said, voice breaking. I'm so sorry for everything, for Clara, for the baby, for Dad's funeral. I was wrong about all of it. I destroyed your life and mine, and I can't fix any of it. I know that now. I know I messed up. I just stared at him lying there on my hallway floor, intoxicated at 7 in the morning, crying about consequences. You reek of alcohol, Miles. I know, he sobbed. I know. I can't stop. I try, but I can't. I'm just like him, just like Dad. And now I've lost everything just like he did. Get out of my building, please. He looked up at me with red eyes. I need help, real help. I'll go to rehab. I'll do the classes. Just, can you help me? Please? No, I said. You had a chance to change before you lost everything. Figure it out yourself. He eventually got up and left. I called building security and made sure they had a note to never let him up again. I heard through Tyler over the next few months that Clara had moved back to Seattle. CPS placed the baby with Clara's mom, while Clara completed parenting classes and found stable housing. She'd left Miles behind. The caseworker's report mentioned his substance abuse extensively. He'd failed a screening during one of their visits. Miles, according to Tyler, was still the same mess, bouncing between friends' couches, working occasional construction gigs when he could stay sober, getting into fights, getting arrested for being intoxicated and disorderly twice. He keeps saying he's sorry for what he did to you, Tyler told me. Says he regrets everything, but then he gets wasted and starts blaming you for calling CPS. Says you destroyed his family out of spite. Is he still drinking? Every day, man. He'll cry about how sorry he is, how he wants to change, how he lost everything. Then he's at those places before noon the next day. Nothing's changed. Tyler wasn't wrong. Miles had regret. Plenty of it. He'd apologized to half the family, sent Clara long messages about how sorry he was, even tried to get into rehab once. Lasted 3 days before he walked out and found the nearest establishment. Regret didn't mean change. It just meant he felt bad while doing the exact same stuff. Last I heard, he was still in Arizona, still drinking, still bouncing between couches and minimum wage jobs, still telling anyone who'd listen that I'd maliciously destroyed his family, right before admitting he'd slept with his brother's wife and lost his daughter because he was intoxicated during a CPS visit. Even his regret was hollow. Life moved on. I made things official with Melissa after a year of dating. Got promoted again at work. Kept training. Got my blue belt in jiu-jitsu. Bought a new car. Mom married a great guy named Frank who treats her like she deserves. Because that's the thing about regret. It doesn't mean anything if you don't change. Miles was sorry. Miles knew he'd messed up. Miles understood he'd destroyed his own family. And Miles was still getting wasted every day, still making excuses, still asking other people to fix his problems. He got what he deserved. Not because I'm cruel, but because consequences are the only teacher some people will ever have. And even then, some people never learn. That's the ending. No big reunion, no redemption arc, no forgiveness. Just me moving forward while they deal with what they created. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.